Hello, hi everyone. Uh, Today's guest on MeetRecord's Pitch Perfect is someone who is not just built sales team, but someone who built sales engines from Oracle to LeadSquared, and most recently as the senior vice president of Inside Sales at Kaseya. Sai Prasad has done it all: scaled teams, shaped leaders, and driven serious revenue. But what makes Sai stand out isn't just the numbers, it's how much fun he has doing it all. He's a believer in building from the ground up, in coaching with empathy, and in challenging the norms of traditional sales leadership. And spoiler alert, he's also cooking up something new, and we just might get him to talk about it. So buckle up. This one's packed with gold for anyone in sales, leadership, or just curious about what it takes to build something great from scratch. Welcome, Sai. Welcome to Pitch Perfect. How
Thank
are
you,
you?
Pramod. It's my honor. Thanks for hosting me.
Yeah. Nice to have you on Pitch Perfect and great. So let's jump in. So, Sai, you build sales teams from scratch at multiple companies. So, what's your personal blueprint for going from zero to high performing?
It's a great question. Well, there are many ingredients to that secret recipe, if you will.
Mhm.
However, let me highlight a few of them. Um, First of all, you need to create a culture of openness and learning, wherein from the get go, we tell people that, hey, listen, we're building a world class sales engine. We keep all our egos aside, and we're all in the pit together. We're all in the trenches together, and we practice it. All my career, I sat with my crew on the floor. As a senior vice president, I was given this wonderful, cabin with all the beautiful facilities, but I never sat. If you spoke to anybody who has worked with me, they'll tell you that I always sat on the floor because that's when you get to know what's really happening on the ground. One of the cardinal rules when you're trying to build an engine is your you want never want to tell your team what to do, things that you won't do yourself, right? You want to be very empathetic, at the same time push them to the next level. And it happens like a magic when you're in the trenches with them, when you're on the floor with them. You can build wonderful systems, and the beauty is, if you do it the right way, they will feel it is their ship. They will feel it is they who are building it, not you. As a leader, that's what you want. You want the crew to believe that they are building it, not you. You got to be that enabler, and you got to be the person nudging them to take those crucial decisions, empower them. I think that's the 35,000-foot overview, if you will, but there are many sub ingredients to it.
Wonderful, Sai. I mean, I really appreciate that. See, you are somebody who believes in standing behind them, encouraging them, and then going ahead when they are in a problem. I mean, I think that's how it sounds like. It's amazing, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
how you want to pull your whole team, encouraging them to basically what you're trying to also give them the freedom at their work
Yeah,
while
absolutely.
correcting them with the mistakes, right? Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and nudging them. I think the right word is nudging them, and also telling
Right.
them, "Hey, listen, these are the ways you could solve this problem." Right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go and prescribe something to them. I would take them through that diagnosis themselves. A lot of times, they themselves will figure out the right solution. When they're talking to us, right? I would ask, "Okay, how do you feel about that? What do you think we should do?" A lot of times they'll come up with really cool ideas, and if it's right and if you make them feel like they came up with that idea, and then you grow the center in that fashion, nothing like it. I grew, for instance, what we did in Kaseya. Although I had teams not just in Bangalore, I had teams in Miami, Atlanta, Austin, Dublin, Ireland, Sydney, Australia, people reporting into me from various places because I was a senior vice president of global inside sales. In all modesty, still the biggest contingent was in Bangalore, in India, about 200 plus in my crew. And never once people felt that they can't walk up to me or they can't tell me anything. Every one of them, I made them feel, in all modesty, that they can approach me anytime. I think that's one defining factor that helped us really scale that operation.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, this is great, right? You led such a large scale inside sales at Kaseya. So tell me, like when a team scales that fast, right? How do you ensure consistency without losing the spark?
Yeah, it's a great thing. It's a beautiful question. So, I mean, honestly speaking, you will fall as you scale, and it doesn't scale quickly. Anybody who tells that things scale quickly, they're lying. You will fall, you'll make mistakes, you'll make hiring mistakes, because as you're hiring into your culture, you want people who also believe in the same culture. And over a period of time, you will realize, okay, this is the blueprint. These are the kind of people we want to be accepted in our culture, right? And in that trial and error, and you got to be quick in establishing that trial and error, you come to a point where you say, okay, this is us. And
Mhm.
this is us shouldn't be defined by you. It has to be defined by the sub leaders, leaders, at various levels. So they all feel that they defined it, not me, just one person, right?
Yeah.
Once we do that, and then we stick to that, right? And then we constantly look at, okay, how do we get better? One of the key things is, we have a culture, built a culture where we never want to be complacent, right? We always looking for what's broken, how can we get better, with keeping our egos aside, right? There is absolutely no room for ego, right? We just got to get better. So if that means you got to move people around or change roles of people or bring help from outside, whatever the business requires, we got to do it, right? So that
Yeah.
mindset that we could be wrong, that mindset that we'll have to constantly improve, and that mindset that we know what our culture is and hire into that culture and empower people.
Mhm.
And of course, all our processes and systems are around that, right? So it becomes easy for us to replicate and build larger teams.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Sai. I mean, even I personally think like culture makes huge difference. Like sometimes what happens is even like in decade of my work experience, I keep looking at things where new people coming in bring in new perspective. Probably sometimes it won't align, but eventually you understand. See, it's not that you have a culture and you just want to stick to it, but you should also be open to learn from that new thing and then change accordingly. See, eventually the company is what it should benefit. We should grow, they should grow, and the whole company
100%.
should grow, right? Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. Nice. So you across your stints at like Oracle, Ayuja, LeadSquared, and what's one early belief you always had about sales leadership that's completely changed over time?
Um, the early beliefs in sales were, unfortunately, when I joined Oracle straight from college, in MBA, they hired me, and I was the only person who was hired. I felt great pride. It was day zero placement, and that was the highest package back then, right out from my
Okay.
MBA. It was all really cool stuff. Then you go join Oracle. Funnily, during that time, people believed that knowing the product, mugging up the product, and the person who really understands the product is a great seller. um, Despite the fact that there are enough data points to prove that's wrong in any company, right? Because by that logic, solution engineers must be the great sellers, right? So one of the, I think, misconceptions, if you will, or a hugely misunderstood phenomena in sales back then, was, you got to be an expert in the product to sell. Okay, in fact, if you think about the human psychology, which is what I preach, coach, throughout my career, because sales is nothing but psychology. Any subject that you're aware of, any
Mhm.
topic, right? If somebody asks you, Pramod, okay, what is that topic that you're passionate about? Like, just take an example. Think of any topic, Pramod. What is your a topic that you can talk for days together?
probably can talk about running or maybe marketing. This is what I keep doing and
Yeah,
I keep enjoying,
good.
right?
Awesome. So you're a runner, you're a marketer, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
since that's your specialization, if a conversation happens around running or marketing, it is very difficult for you to not talk too much. It is
Yes, agreed.
human psychology won't let you be calm, collected, and ask questions when you are very familiar with the subject. What happens is um, you have that urge to show what you know. Okay, unless you're trained, coached, and you're professionally taught how to sell, that you have to keep that knowledge at the back of your head and then ask questions. Most people, they want to show off what they know. Okay, because people have little knowledge of one thing and they're like, okay, I know this. So that's what happens, when people go through the product training, they come to a sales floor and the numbers drop dramatically, right? There's a classic case study of one of the big retailers in US where the first 6 months they don't go through training, and after 6 months they're sent to the headquarters to go through a training, and then they come back. They found something very funny happening after the training. When they come back, their
Hmm.
sales numbers dipped. In the first 6 months when they had no training, their sales numbers were better.
Oh my
and
God. Okay.
and what really happened there was people were taken to headquarters and they were talking about they were told a lot about the products. Okay,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
when they
Hmm.
came back, they had to regurgitate that, they had to vomit that back to the customer. But prior to that, what did they do? When somebody came to them with a question, they'd say, okay, how would you like that, why would you like that, what is your preference? They were asking a lot of qualifying questions and being in the customer's world. But now with the product knowledge, they stopped doing that because they know a lot of stuff. They started blurting, I know this stuff, I'll tell you what is it, and blah 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 blah. So this is one thing. Even now in some companies it happens. It's one of the reasons I'm starting what I'm starting. We'll probably, if we get time, we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
But it's sad, and back then it was worse. I think people have gotten slightly better now.
that's interesting, Sai. Yeah, I mean, so when you're talking about this whole thing, right, like more like a mucking up or trying to not understand the problem statement they're trying to solve for the customers. Instead, you just look at the PPT that you were given, know in and out, and then you just try to fit your answer to any problem that the customer come up with, right? I mean, it becomes challenging. I think even the customers and prospects became smarter that they keep asking a really nice questions, which is nothing to do with the PPTs.
Yeah.
Interesting. But the way you say it feels so much fun. I mean, you would have enjoyed so much. So because when I was going through your LinkedIn also, right, you put a statement saying have fun doing what you do the best. So what keeps sales exciting for you after all these years?
Oh, it's a phenomenal question. Um, so sales is a field where if you make that as your career and
Hmm.
you really don't know how to do that, okay, that can stress the hell out of you. And I tell this to people, I tell this to my crew. If you walk into the office every day
Mm.
with a huge headache, and if you're worried about coming to office and work, you're worried about your targets, then you haven't figured sales yet. Then you
Mm.
really don't know what sales is, right? See, sales, what keeps it exciting for me is sales is nothing but human psychology in play. If you really know how to interact with humans, if you really know how to stay in their world, right? And if you really know that, people buy not because they understand your product, they buy because they think you understand their problems better than others. Okay,
Wonderful.
that's where the sale happens. That's where at the psychological level sale happens. That's why I always tell that regardless of what you sell,
Mhm.
it's how you sell. Okay, so for example, in Kaseya, I had a huge setup, right? I had roughly 11 teams. At any point in time, I can selling very different products. Okay, sales
Mhm.
cycles are different. The average sale price is different. So if I pick a top seller from here and put that seller somewhere else in some other product, he or she would continue selling the same way. I would prove it to people that listen, it's not what you sell, it's how you sell. So the psychology behind selling, I mean, I can talk about it until cows come home. There is so much into it. That keeps me excited. It's people, students of psychology, meaning not academic, but the real students of psychology reading about human behavior and all the plethora of research that has gone into the connection with selling, negotiation, and practicing that would enjoy it, would come and experiment it. They'll have a smile on the face when they're coming to work. Their numbers will speak for themselves, as opposed to people who are like tense. People who are tense in any walk of life, field of life, means they didn't practice enough. They have not mastered their art enough. You see, anybody in any walk of life, right? Um, that calm confidence comes when you have firm grip of what it is. I think, in all modesty, I have that in sales, and I've built sales engines with that grasp and grip, and could transform many lives, if you will.
Interesting, Sai. I totally resonate with what you say, because I don't think it's just for the sales, but anything you are doing, right? You should be really good at it and keep your best, so that, I mean, you don't have to really worry. I mean, why is that you're so tensed about something? Is because you're underprepared about anything. I mean, this is really amazing the way you
Yeah, it's
said.
a side note, sales is a profession where it's hilarious. Okay, sales is the only profession where every other department thinks they can go and comment. Okay, like product will put up a great sales script, marketing will put up a sales script,
Mhm.
somebody in engineering will put up a sales script, they'll add that to the sales script,
Mhm.
because everybody thinks talking is selling. It's not true. Okay, and sales is another profession where 95% of the salespeople don't read. They don't
Mm.
read books. They don't read any. You know how many sales books have been written? How many negotiation books have been written by legendary gurus over decades? One of the questions I always would ask in an interview, I've taken countless interviews. Every day I took interview in my career, right? Because we kept hiring, we kept growing. I would ask, okay, what sales books have you read? 95% of the times people will say, I have not read any book. So it's like, think about it, Pramod, right? Let's say you go to a doctor and the doctor says, I haven't read a single medicine journal or a book.
I wouldn't probably trust them.
You
I'll
will
be
run away.
concerned.
You
Yeah,
will
of
run.
course, I'll be very concerned. I mean,
Yeah,
did I come
and
to a wrong place?
yeah, and why is it different for sales? Sales is a
Correct.
profession, right? It
Correct.
is a profession where you got to look at it as, okay, what's out there? Who has done it? Who has done what? How do I master this? Then you will have fun with it,
Hmm.
right? People always say, I learned through experience. What if you had all crappy managers? What if your manager was a total crap who could, with due respect, who never learned, who, you know what most people do, promote? They learn the first 1 or 2 years of their career and they
Hmm.
repeat that for many years and call it experience. Okay, that's the classic mistake people make, right? And on a side note, I know we're stretching this answer, but it's a
No, no.
beautiful segue.
Yeah.
One NBA player was asked once, "Aren't you afraid that your competitor is practicing for 8 hours?" Okay, and he is a classic, legendary player, and he said, with a smile on his face, "Is he practicing his mistakes for 8 hours?" You
Wow.
see, that's what most people say when they say, they have 10 years experience, 8 years experience. Most of them practice their mistakes and call it experience.
Wow.
I'll take a pause there. I'll let you think about that.
Wow. I mean, I think I'm like in awe where I was like, I don't even know what to say, but that's such an amazing way of looking at things, right? Upskilling is so important. I mean, this statement itself answers to everything, right? I mean, tell you one thing. So I mean, in this whole process, right? I think, I mean, the way you speak, the way you share your experience, you've worn many hats across your journey. So,
Yeah.
what's been your proudest moment as a sales leader so far?
Oh, many. But if I were to pick a few, so the way it happened, my journey in Kaseya was I was originally hired in Kaseya back then as an experiment, and that excited me. Okay,
Wow.
they said, "Hey, we don't know if we can do this out of India or not, but we want to check." So they had hired me as a first sales rep plus manager, if you will, and I sold effectively alone for 6 months. I closed umpteen deals, and I proved that we can do it. And then they started giving me team members one by one by one by one by one. Now so Kaseya was a company that kept acquiring companies. Okay, that's how the Kaseya grew, right? If you look at the journey of Kaseya, every year we'll acquire two or three companies. That's how it became that mammoth player in IT, if you will. So every time we acquire a company and we go and tell them, hey, we'll do this out of India, every time the founder will say this can't be done out of India, and every time we prove them wrong. That's one of our proudest moments. And I remember in one of those, I mean, every SKU we would bag a lot of, you know, so the other thing is I would always take my entire crew to SKU in Miami. Okay. Uh, I was, in all modesty, one of the few leaders in India who believed in exposing my entire crew to
Mhm.
US, and I would fight for that budget. Okay. Every year until I was there, I took my entire crew to Miami, 200 plus people. Imagine the amount of
Wow.
cost involved in taking them, flying them over, spending 10 days or a week there and then flying them back, right?
Yeah.
Because I believe that they need that exposure, right? Now, many SKUs, since you asked the proudest moment, I just profoundly recollect, I think it was 2017 or 2018 SKU, I don't recollect, when all the awards were backed by our team. Okay. And
Wow.
yeah, all the awards. Like we were standing there and I could, as much as we were all the same company and stuff, I could understand, that equation there. Like because Pramod, that's one pride I always have. And I say this to all the founders, everybody I talk to, that everything can be sold out of India. Okay. And we have proven that it is absolutely possible. You just need the right systems, right process, and right control mechanism, right culture. It is 100% possible to build a massive sales engine out of India, and we've proven that every single time. Every single time we prove that when we bag those awards and we break records, those were proud moments.
Wonderful, Sai. I mean, really appreciate the way you pulled out things, and then I think the way you're taking your whole team and then the whole logistics. It's not just easy, right? Like even going out for a team dinner itself is so challenging these days. But imagining, and then your team also is. I think you've built a great team in the first place. Probably the culture and everything that you're talking about. I think that really came out well, which is also
Yeah,
a great thing.
it's my honor. I think it's my honor to serve them. I would say I'd put it the other way around, right? Not, I never thought they were serving me. It was my honor to serve them.
Yeah, that's a very nice way of telling yourself. But I think personally, I say they had a great leader. Your whole team had a great leader who has been very supportive. I think I appreciate you for everything that you've done. So since we are talking about this large teams and all, right? Now, one question is like in large teams, what happens is you can't shadow every call, right?
Mhm.
How do you build systems where feedback still feels personal and actionable for every representative in the team?
Yeah, yeah, we got to bake in that to the process. Um, it's a great question because we're in the day and age where there are plenty of tools available. Um,
Mm-hmm.
AI, the evolution of AI in sales, and tools like MeetRecord, what a phenomenal tool. However, if you don't have the process in play, right, in the sense, For example, whatever processes I've built, listening to the calls happen at multiple levels. For example, manager is supposed to listen to two calls and give personal feedback. A layer above that is supposed to listen one call every week and give feedback. And collectively, as a team, they'll sit together and listen to one call every week. They're supposed to give collective feedback. And a peer should listen to a call and give feedback. So if that is baked into your process and you have the right set of tools like MeetRecord, uh, and you do that consistently, and you have alarms. For example, if an audit is not submitted, leaders should be intimated. Okay, this audit was missed. This week, this person was not audited by this manager, or they failed to meet that. So we would have audit goals, right? I mean, it was as much as it is fun, it is not also it is simple but not easy, right? People have to fall in place and follow the process. So, long story short, any replication has to be baked into the process, and you got to have guardrails and triggers and alarms to tell people, the leaders, when it's not happening.
Very nice. I mean, I'm just curious because I mean, creating process. One thing for me is definitely challenging is because everybody sometimes there are often people or probably managers complain or saying that they didn't have enough time in order to go back and review on such a level. So how did you manage to handle these things where you right so that they follow this process?
Yeah, that's a thoughtful question. I like the way you put that out. And it happens, right? So, two things we got to keep in mind when that happens.
Hmm.
A, we got to really ascertain how much time do they have. Not just managers, even the reps. Many
Right.
companies make the classic mistake of telling reps to do this, that. Then when will they settle, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Right.
because their main goal is to sell. Their main goal is to bring revenue, right?
Mhm.
So we can't have process as a bottleneck. Process should never become a bottleneck. So we got to be careful and considerate when we come up with these goals, and see, okay, what is feasible, what is possible for a manager to do or a rep to do within a week, and come up with those goals, keeping that their main goal is to sell, right? Because that should never be harmed. At the same time, we got to build in a process where we're also looking at how to improve and how to get better. So empathy plays a huge role there. And like I said, here's the thing, right? Here's the trick, right? I'm revealing the trick to you.
Yeah.
Any process, if you're the leader, this is what you do. Hey, we have this cool tool, MeetRecord. You know that we got to listen to our calls, and we got to get better. um, what do you guys suggest? How many calls should we listen? How many calls should I listen? How many calls should you listen? How many calls should a peer listen? How do we build that process and put that out to the team? Okay, how many instances where I would have had a number in mind, they'll give me a bigger number, and it came from their mouth. They can't even go back.
Right. True. I mean, this is amazing, right? You just take it from the team, and they know that what is feasible and all. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting, Sai. So tell me one thing. So, do you think most sales organizations today truly know what the word great sounds like on a call, or are we still going by instinct?
Um, yes and no. Yeah. So I think people know what great sounds like from a couple of closures and recordings they might have heard. I'll tell you where the problem is, right? Since I've grown, large teams, and it's funny how this happens, right? Knowing very well what are the
Mhm.
ingredients of a kick-ass call and how closures happen, even then people find it hard to replicate them. Maybe because this is what my understanding is, right? Maybe because they think that it doesn't work on their
Mhm.
scenario, or they think that um, they don't have that courage, or they lack practice, how to put that across. So, so long-winded answer to that thing is, it's a yes and no. I believe that, in yes, there are calls that we can make them as models and tell people these are the right things to do. Okay.
Hmm.
However, for strange reasons, still people don't apply that. Right. That, you can take the horse to the pond or the water, and they have to drink it eventually. Right. That enforcement. I think tools like MeetRecord and the future of AI, I think we need more and more help in enforcing that behavior, right? Because knowing is not enough, right? The action is what speaks. A lot of salespeople know what is right, but on the calls, they'll go back to their habits. They'll just do whatever they were doing before. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah. So more like this. Probably, I mean, like you said, I mean, when you are comfortable sitting at your own laptop or probably reading something, you always know, hey, this is right, this is wrong. But when you're on an actual call, and where you, like you said, you don't know how to control your nerves and keep it calm, composed when you're talking to the customer, then definitely I think they'll lose it, and then probably, as you said, like they'll go back to their old habits, doing the
Yeah,
same mistakes.
that's why they need to practice. I think, even MeetRecord has a wonderful simulator, if I'm not wrong. Keep me honest, right? You guys have a simulator, right?
Yes, yes, we do have a simulator, and we also have something on AI sales role play where you could actually practice with the digital twin of the existing prospect, so that you know what kind of objections that they might come up with
See,
based on their psychological thought
See, things
process.
like that. I love the evolution. I'm a big proponent of adopting new technology in sales, because, see, change is the only constant, right? And anybody who is saying, "Oh no, I don't know if this helps," they'll be just blown out of the water, right?
Mm,
People need to leverage more and more of tools like MeetRecord, because, see, you're giving a new rep or an up and coming rep chances to go practice these things virtually. These things didn't exist when we started sales, right? I wish we had those things. Those things. You got to practice, 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 and that's exactly what we need.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. I was feeling that thing. Like I have this question coming up while talking to you, where you started when there are none of these tools existing where you could make yourself better. Now that these tools are there, I was wondering like what great heights, probably what you would have doubled down, or maybe you would have done 10x of what you've achieved so far with these tools if they were there when you started your career and all, right?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, see, listen, we can't go back in time and do
Right.
magic. However, I like the way the industry is going. I like the way companies
Mm-hmm.
like MeetRecord are leading the charge and telling people how they can leverage technology to get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only caution though is, see, the entire crew has to believe in it, right? Let's say we
Exactly.
implement MeetRecord, but the leader doesn't believe in it, everything goes in waste. See, the leader has to
Right.
enforce. Leader has to say, okay, did you practice? Let's pull up reports to see how much you practice. Let's look at the recording. Let's look at the simulation. Let's look at what difficulty levels you set in there, and how did that call go. Let's look at all that, right? That level of detail, if the leadership doesn't pay attention to, well, it's then people will take it lightly.
True, true, true. Definitely. I mean, that is 100%. But tell me one thing. I mean, this is something. So see, one definitely is leader believing in that product or anything, and whenever there are too many objections from the rest of the team, how were you handling those? Like, see, not every time that because sales leader believed, or any leader believed in something and they could have nurtured their whole team. I don't think it is 100% possible, because team members would also have objections on trying that for various reasons, right? Say for example, probably they didn't want it because they feel they are being monitored way too much and all. So how was that you handle these things and all, probably in your
Yes,
case?
I would still, I would constantly go back to, it's their ship. Okay. One of the best leadership books you can ever read is a book called "It's Your Ship." Pramod, if you have not read that book,
I'm
please
just
buy this book. It's called
Yes,
"It's."
yes.
Have you read?
No, 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 I'm saying I'll get that
Yeah,
tomorrow
it's
probably.
Yeah, it's called It's Your Ship. Read that book
Mhm.
or you'll thank me, right? And anytime people come with objections, right? And sometimes human beings don't know themselves what they're objecting to. It could be an emotional outburst. It could be something else in their head that's bothering them, that's coming out as an objection. Okay, so
Mhm.
you talk to the team. All right, guys, what's the problem, right? Okay, and then do things like, okay, so we gotta improve. The whole initiative is for us to get better. So in that spirit, and we got to do it, right? Now I'm not keen on how, I'm not very keen on how do we do it. Let's look at it together, right? If we have no other option but to do it, how do we do it, right? How do you think we should do this, right? What is acceptable, what is not acceptable? Put it back to them again, right? It's you know a general pattern. One of the most legendary um, generals ever, right? He always believed in just telling the mission and letting people do how they want to do it, right? He's like, if they're winning the battle for you, how does it matter how they do it, right?
Right.
So you leave the how to them in many ways. You can nudge them when they're a little off track here and there, but if you let them design the system and you help that self discovery, then they own it, right? And then it becomes easy. But the problem comes in most sales organizations. What happen is people will come and tell them, okay, you got to do 10 audits a day, 10 audits in a week. Then everybody's like, how am I supposed to do this? You're supposed to do 2 mock calls a day, right? If we give that number, we are enforcing something which they think it's coming from somewhere else who doesn't understand, right? So
That hits a pressure point also where they don't
yes.
have the freedom.
Yes. As opposed to if you just tell them it's their ship and we're trying to make the ship better, right? And how do we do this? And you'll be constantly surprised to know that people are really good. People are really good. It depends on how you empower them and how you let them set the standards, right? And when you do this discussion in a group, top players be like, come on, guys. They themselves will like talk to each other like, that's way too low. We can bet higher. They'll come up with a consensus. Now it's
Right.
their plan. They can't go back.
True. Agreed. Agreed. Definitely. I mean, the moment you said it's your ship, then I was like, okay. Then immediately, the first thing that got into my mind is they'll start searching among themselves that for the answers. I mean, they don't find it out, but they will find it
Yeah,
in within themselves, right?
yeah.
Very interesting. Now, tell me, like, so what role does listening or deep listening play in helping leaders become better coaches and not just better closers?
Oh my God, listening is everything. Everything. And deep listening, you differentiate listening and deep listening. And I'm glad you did. Because a lot of cues are nonverbal when you listen. Right? When I'm on the
Right.
floor, I'm always on the floor. My ears are everywhere. Um, I'm hearing people talk. I'm hearing people talk on the phone and talk with each other. Right? All that ingredient goes into. So I've had this habit of one of the things you will ask if you ask people who worked with me. I do these trainings myself on
Mm-hmm.
Wednesdays. Okay, I bring my entire crew together. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I do a sales acceleration training, right? Regardless of what they sell, for an hour. Okay, it happens every Wednesday. Talk to anybody who has worked with me. Okay, the entire crew comes together, like 200-ish people. You can imagine in an auditorium set up for an hour every Wednesday without fail.
Wow.
Okay, so the reason I'm saying that is, unless you bring that culture, it'll never happen, right? The culture of learning, the culture of making sure that we can constantly get better at these things. That's the only way companies can scale big operations.
Interesting. So I have a question, which I'll twist it a bit based on what you've said. So now, like you said, bringing in all the people together at one place, and then right now my question is like, imagine having access to every sales conversation your team was having. Right now, what patterns do you look offer to coach them better and more effectively?
Oh, wow. So one of the very first patterns will be the listening to talking ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because great sellers have a very good ratio on that, wherein they're not over talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would look at how many open-ended questions were asked as opposed to close-ended questions, because we want the prospects to open up. Um, I would see how much the sales rep stayed in the prospects or the customer's world. And I would see that happens only if they really understand what the prospect or customer is saying, and not just spray our product and pray that okay something will stick. And then how they handle objections, and if the competitor's name was dropped, how did they smartly maneuver around that without knocking the competition and being disrespectful. I mean, there are so many things we'll look at. But then if all calls are recorded with really cool tools like MeetRecord, we can pull up those calls, and even those large gatherings that it's so funny. And I talk to sales leaders across India, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
how many sales teams don't even get together once a week? I'm not talking about small teams. I'm talking about large teams that are run out of India, right? Where there are 100 people, 200 people. Ask them, okay, how many times do you guys come together, the entire crew, right? Like most of them say, no, we're all different. We all work different. Like, how do you then bring unity? How do you make them think like this is one ship, and we got to make sure it doesn't sink, right? And we got to be together in this, and this is your ship, right? So that culture plus with all the things that I just mentioned is what
Yeah.
makes it magic.
Interesting, very interesting. Sai. I mean, thank you for that. Now, now probably I'll go to a different topic where about the fresh graduates kind of thing. See, we have all seen most. I mean, probably you would have seen a lot where the new representatives freeze or fumble on their first few calls, right? So, do you see value in giving them a safe space to practice real world objections before going live, or how do you like doing
100%.
it?
100%. We absolutely want them to practice, right? I've read countless books, and I'm a big fan of U.S. Navy SEALs. In that Team Six, which took Osama down, and Captain Phillips, and all those wonderful, they've all come as movies now. There's a saying in U.S. Navy SEALs that if you bleed if you sweat in practice, you will bleed less in war. Okay, if you
Absolutely.
sweat in practice, you will bleed less in war. So if these reps can use a tool like MeetRecord and practice before they get on the floor, and practice really well and get feedback from their mentors and managers, and how you have a process in place where they got to do these many practice sessions, mock sessions through that tool, and enforce that, and then they hit the floor. I think that's that's way better than the traditional way where they were just thrown the ocean and said, okay, just go swim, right? They would at least have some simulation into listen, it may not be perfect. I know that the tools are evolving, and it's getting better and better day by day, but it's much better than nothing, right? Like when
Yeah.
we started, there was no such thing, right? We learned it the hard way, and it was very difficult. It was not easy, right? I mean, but now if they can be simulated, nothing like it. And don't take these simulators lightly, right? We all know the professional pilots are using simulators, right, for a lot of their training, because they can't. How do they do crash training, right? They simulate everything. If a crash is going to happen, they simulate the crash, and these simulators are doing a wonderful job of training pilots. Then why not salespeople, right? We should definitely enforce that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right? Like even probably that's what I wanted to ask you also. Like from the day you started, probably you were having only the PPTs or probably basic documentation about the product where you were practicing. Where my father also was saying like these two practice in front of mirrors because there were a lot of in-person sales that were happening where they used to test how they're looking, how they're talking, how are their expressions and all these things. But since
100%.
yeah, so I mean with the change in technology, see right now the focus went towards like what you said, talk to listen ratio, how is your patience level, how are you handling the objections, right? You're optimizing it so much that every minute of the representative is getting better and better and more interesting, right? I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean, see,
wonderful.
I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill. Anybody who's near and dear to me know that I
Yeah.
quote him a lot.
Okay.
So Winston Churchill was one of the biggest, best orators the world has ever produced. Okay, now he writes. I've read a couple of books of him. I would read any day any of his books, and he writes that before something comes out of his mouth in a speech,
Mm-hmm.
he would have practiced that for 6 months minimum.
Wow.
Okay, and you'd have chewed over it, you'd have practiced the way, the angle you would take, the body language, the how it would come out of his mouth in front of the mirror. Right now, imagine Churchill had a tool like MeetRecord. Right, he would have probably produced it what in 1 week, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
so see, that's the power. Right, if people think about it, this makes it really wonderful for them. I mean, it helps them get better.
Yeah, like I mean that like you said, from the Navy SEAL, like the more you sweat, the less you bleed at war. And
Yeah.
that's exactly right, has been doing. Interesting. So I mean, I'll probably go to an interesting topic again. Like you've seen the sales word evolve dramatically, right, over a period of time from the day you started. So what's one shift in buyer behavior that today's representatives probably simply can't afford to ignore in this whole experience
Okay,
of yours?
the shift you're talking about. All right. So for many ages, for decades, it was
Mhm.
caveat emptor. Okay, that expression caveat emptor means buyers beware. We're all
Okay.
told that as customers, we should be careful, we should be aware. Okay, what are we buying from? That expression caveat emptor is used in legal language in many ways to say that if you're a buyer, be careful because the seller can cheat you. This caveat emptor as expression has been around for ages.
Mhm.
Okay. Now for the last few years, it has become caveat venditor, meaning the sellers beware. Why? All the information a buyer needs is available.
Right. Agreed.
You can't bullshit them.
Yeah, I
You
mean they're
cannot.
doing their research. 100%.
Yes, everything is available. There are platforms that'll give them comparisons of tools. There are places where they can go read reviews. There is Reddit. If they do a little bit of research, right, sales reps will sweat on calls. So we're in a world where it's caveat venditor, meaning the professionalism of the sales crew has to be that high
Hmm.
that that becomes the differentiator. Okay, I
Interesting.
always say this, that when people come and tell me like they lost this deal to a competitor, right? I always had this dictum that no company lost to another competitor. Okay,
Hmm.
it's you who lost to a better sales guy in that company.
Wow.
As simple as that.
Yes.
Because I remember this for the rest of your life, Pramod. Okay,
Hmm.
there are great products sold terribly by bad salespeople, and there are bad products sold wonderfully by great
Great.
salespeople.
Excellent. Truth.
So so that's the thing, right? We live in a world of caveat venditor, wherein the sellers should be so careful. They should upskill. They should be professional because that's the differentiator. Okay, that's the
Agree.
shift that has happened. Okay, if you think about it, back in those days, people can say anything, right? Like, they can say this is my best product, and people would not have tools to research. Now everything is available in your fingertips.
Yeah,
You can
true,
go
true.
research before you even starting a conversation, right? So you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
bullshit your way through.
Right. I mean, sometimes you also can just put the question in GPT and you get everything in like all
Yeah, 100%.
in your time, right? Yeah. Very interesting side result. So now I mean this is something I'm waiting to ask. So after this conversation, now I'm more excited and I'm waiting to know. So you're working on something new. Can you give us a small peek into what the problem or opportunity that excited you right now that you're trying something new?
Yeah. Um, it's after Kaseya, the last 1 year plus, I've been I've been getting calls from various founders and SaaS leaders and SaaS companies that they want to talk to me. They're interested in knowing how we built what we built, and in that process, I've realized that how broken our SaaS ecosystem, especially in India, is. Because a lot of these founders are frustrated that they're getting a ton of inbound leads, but their conversion sucks. They're irritated that they have pipeline to show in the CRM, but then a lot of them don't convert. Okay, they're terribly disappointed that the sales reps, the crew. If you pick them and ask, you should do this experiment in MeetRecord as well, right? Pick your
Mhm.
sales reps and ask, okay, what is MeetRecord's value proposition? Okay, I guarantee you, unless they are trained and coached really well, every one of them will give a different answer. Then you will know your process is broken, right? I'm not saying MeetRecord is like that. MeetRecord is a great company, but I'm saying generally, right, most companies would not have sales reps to that level of professionalism, right? Wherein they work as a crew and they're an attack team. Like I said, US Navy SEALs, right? They have rehearsed every scenario, they have practiced every scenario, they have the system, they have the process. That is rare. There's a huge problem that I'm seeing in the SaaS world now because the sales process is broken in multiple ways. So I'm building a company, which I will be revealing shortly, maybe in a month or so, where I'm unblocking that revenue, by directly attacking those problem areas and helping, SaaS companies come out of it. It's very exciting because it's something I've done for years, and it's something I think I can help many companies get better and boost their numbers.
Wonderful, Sai. I mean, firstly, all the best and congratulations for this whole thought process and what you're coming up with. Really exciting to wait and know what's coming up and how exactly this is going to work. Yeah,
Thank you.
cool, cool. So we are almost at the end. Probably, I would like to. I have two rapid fire questions that I would like to
Oh,
ask.
rapid fire. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you're now giving Karan Johar.
Okay, so the first one. So you've had team of more than 200 and people you've managed and all. So what is that one piece of sales advice you have repeated more than like 50 times or maybe 100 times?
No assumptions. And if you want the unfiltered version, which I tell my crew,
Mhm.
assumption is the mother of all fuck ups. Like, you never enter sales calls, never lead teams with assumptions. Okay. So if you look at the word assumption or assume, Pramod,
Mhm.
when we assume, look at the word ASSUME. When we assume, we make an ass out of you and me,
Wow.
right?
This is
So
too good.
I tell
Yeah.
my sales reps and sales crew leaders, no assumptions. We got to know and get to the truth, the bottom of the truth.
Yeah, it is so funny yet so brutal. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very good. So now the next one. If your sales style was a movie title, right? So what would it be?
It would be Mad Men. I don't know if you watched the series Mad Men. If you have not watched the series Mad Men, I would highly recommend. I tell all the sales professionals to watch the series called Mad Men. Okay,
Okay.
Start watching today, Pramod. In
Sure.
that, the lead character Don Draper,
Hmm.
I adore him. I emulate him, and I love his style. And a lot of what I preach also resonates with the way he carries himself. And that is a lot of sales negotiation in that entire series. So, Mad Men will be my answer.
Interesting. Very nice. I'll pick this along with the book you were mentioning. So another question, like one mistake almost every first time sales manager makes.
They start bossing around because they're off the calls now. They think they are, superior. They tell people do this, do that. That's one of the classic mistakes new sales managers make. They lose empathy. They start bossing around. They're thinking that's the way they can lead the team. That's a classic mistake I've seen new sales managers that are not coached and trained make.
Interesting, interesting. So see, normally a lot of times, right? No matter what, probably we're going for this big sales or big negotiation call or anything. There will be bit of nervousness or anything. I don't know. I mean, probably you are not. But what I wanted to ask is, what's on your playlist probably before you do a big pitch or probably going for a big sales meeting?
You mean playlists like songs? You mean?
Yeah, I mean, probably podcast or a song or whatever
Okay.
that makes you comfortable and feels
Yeah.
calm, makes you
Yeah.
feel calm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a sorted guy in the sense I know what I'm doing and I've mastered this profession of selling. I'm not tensed, but however, having said that,
Hmm.
I grew up listening to a lot of Ilayaraja and A.R. Rahman. So if I could, tune my ears to their hits, and I think that would be my blessing before a big meeting. If I could just get a couple of their super hit songs going, if I could listen into that before the big meeting, I think that'll be a boon.
Wonderful. So probably you also listen to a lot of Carnatic and Hindustani too, if I'm not
I do
wrong.
that too. I do that too. Yes, I have a flair for
Wo-
that too.
Wonderful, wonderful. So one last question before we end. So I mean, one thing I got to know about you is you read a lot of books, but something I understood from this is not just a lot. I think a lot. I mean, I probably uh, make it 10x by within this conversation. So, what is that one book or probably podcast that you suggest every sales professional should follow, other than the ones you covered in the podcast already?
Okay, or it's hard because in all modesty, I continue reading. I read a lot. I'm a big Charlie Munger fan. Charlie Munger is if you don't know who Charlie Munger is, he was a right hand of Warren Buffett, and they built
Yes.
Berkshire Hathaway together.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
both of them believe that both of them kept saying the richest men on earth kept saying that how much time they spend reading. So is Bill Gates, and I
Right.
just can't understand when people say they don't read. Right? Anyway, that conversation aside, one book is so hard to pick, but I would say um, "To Sell Is Human" by
Hmm.
Danny Pink.
Okay.
It's a good start. Would keep the salesperson interested and
Hmm.
will keep the salesperson curious
Hmm.
about the profession of selling. So the book I would recommend is "To Sell Is Human" by Dan Pink, and podcast. I would go back to this guy who really shook me in my early days of selling and got me into the path of exploring and researching more on the human psychology in selling and mastering sales. So his name is Ari Galper, and he has this wonderful podcast called Stump the Guru, and it's by Ari Galper. And I would encourage sales professionals to follow his podcast.
Wonderful. Yeah. Listeners out there, please do. take recommendations from Sai. I mean, these are definitely amazing because if you had listened this whole podcast, probably the way he shared his knowledge, experience, it is so amazing. I mean, really, Sai. I mean, I really loved, enjoyed talking to you, and probably there's a lot of learning I could do after the podcast as well, not just this. Maybe I'll keep
Same
troubling you
here.
later as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my honor as well. I think companies like MeetRecord are like, those rare gems that are shining in the world of SaaS, doing the right things and bringing the technology that helps salespeople and sales professionals. So it's my honor, and thank you so much for hosting me. And
Yeah.
whatever little I knew, I shared, and you're a great host.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I really glad to know that you enjoyed the conversation. Yeah.
Same
It was
here.
wonderful, wonderful talking to you.